Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rafael Gabmomo, and I'm excited to be your host, your your moderator for today's event. Before we proceed further, I'm going to be talking about the lineup of programs that we have later today and for the rest of the month of June. Today's topic is intersite connectivity, and there's something that makes it very interesting. The fact that, as you all know, Twitter has been blocked. So how do you move from one place to the other so that So Stephen Balogu is going to be coming up soon to tell us how to be smart with, yeah. And later today at 6 p.m. to 7, we're going to be having our usual DevOps training, and our speaker is Aurelio Adegbite. So as you can see on the screen, on the 12th of June, we have the events continue, and also on the 29th. So we hope that you stick with us and on this exciting journey. But if you are new, please would like you to hit the subscribe button, and also would like you to like the video. Thank you very much. I'll be presenting in a very short while our speaker. Our speaker is Stephen Balogu. Stephen Balogu is an experienced professional. He's a Microsoft support professional. He knows the subject matter than I do. So he's going to be taking us through the nitty-gritty of how to connect site-wise. I hand over the mic to you, Stephen.
Thank you very much, my big brother, my mentor. Yeah, Ralph, I'm grateful for that introduction. And I want to proceed in this slide that I, first of all, want to appreciate the brain behind this session. I want to appreciate my brother, David. You've been a very great man. And I want to appreciate all the brains in person of Mr. Paul and all the Nigerian community, Azure Microsoft community. I want to appreciate all the leaders and everyone who have been relentlessly try as much as possible to put one effort and the other to see a way that we can, we can build ourselves skill-wise and try as much as possible to, to build everybody to be able to to be able to stand equipped when the need arises. Yeah. Okay. Just like my colleague, my friend, my big brother rightly said, in terms of the inter-site connectivity, we will actually try as much as possible to be extreme that today. We'll be looking at inter-site connectivity. Okay. So in a rush of light, I'm going to try as much as possible to preview. I mean, to present my slides, the slides that I already prepared for this session today. I'm going to be presenting it, and so that we can be able to have a very good picture and a very good idea of this whole topic of the inter-site connectivity. Okay, so I will be sharing my screen today. Please, I want us to please sit tight, get ourselves prepared. Get yourself prepared. Sit tight, relax very well, because we are going to deep dive into labs. We are going to try as much as possible to go on labs. After we must have gone through the slides, we go on labs, because everything is going to be hands-on. Everything is going to be practical. So I request us to please sit tight as I take us through this session. So I'll be sharing my screen now, and okay, please, you could confirm if you are able to see my screen. Okay, I hope my my slide is quite very clear. Have on the headline that is inter-site connectivity, and when we talk about inter-site connectivity, like correctly stated there, that it's actually a way of establishing connection between the on-premises and the Azure cloud. Okay, so it's a way of establishing connection between the on-premises environment and the Azure environment. Or it's actually a way that you can actually establish a connection between your Azure virtual networks. Just like I stated, it can be between on-premises or the cloud, or it can be between two VNets, just like it's stated there. So I proceed further. Now, on the second slide, we'll be trying as much as possible to, we'll be going through the second slide. Actually present to us the overview section. It presents the overview. So we look at, yes, good and fine. Before this section, a colleague of mine, in person of Kofi, has tried as much as possible to do justice on the first part, which has to do with the virtual network. Yeah, he did justice to that last week Saturday. We look at the virtual network, because there's no way you can deploy your VPN in the cloud without, or you can try to establish a connection in the cloud without trying to have a virtual network in the cloud. So still, when we deploy, after the virtual network, we try as much as possible to as well look at the subnet where the gateway can reside. So we look at the default subnet where resources can be placed. The resources that it can be your virtual machine, it can be any resources, can place them on the default subnet. Then also we proceed further to look at the gateway subnet. So within the virtual network, we all fully know that the virtual network is actually a large space of environment. And in the large space of the environment, the large space environment is actually an environment whereby you try as much as possible, in as much as you have different departments. And those different departments, you try as much as possible to segment them by having them in different, what we call different subnet. And that is why we come up with the idea of the default subnet and also gateway subnet. There are also other subnet, as the case may be, that you can deploy in the cloud. Okay, also we'll be looking at the VPN gateway. The VPN gateway, it's actually that the resource that will actually give us this connection. I call it connection. I call it a tunnel that will give us a tunnel that we can be able to route traffic and encrypted traffic across the cloud, across the public internet. So we look at the VPN gateway. As well, we proceed further from there to look at the local network gateway. And also, after the local network gateway, we look at the connections. Then before we now begin to talk about the site-to-site VPN connection, and as well, we look at point-to-site VPN gateway connection, and also we proceed further to look at the VNet to VNet deployment, and of which we will be looking at. We'll be looking at each of them one after another in the lab environment. Thank you. Okay, so now quickly on that slide. Okay, so we've talked on the overview. Then further, I present the virtual network. Just like my colleague rightly said in the course of last week, that the virtual network, it's actually the fundamental building block for your private network in Azure. So the virtual network in Azure, and also you will agree with me that on premise you have your so the on-premises network, it's actually residing within a block of networks, right? Within a block of an address space. So which is actually a network on that is actually residing on the on-premises. Then the same thing, similarly, we also have in the Azure cloud. So in the Azure cloud, you look at the virtual network, and also the VNet. The VNet enables many types of Azure resources, such as VM and other resources, to securely communicate with each other. Yes, that is actually for the side of the VNet. Then we look at also when you talk about the VNet, just like my colleague also mentioned, and I'm still trying to bring it up today. In terms of the deployment of the VNet, the number of VNets that you can actually deploy in the cloud, you can deploy up to 1,000 1,000 number of virtual network per region. Per region, please note that per region and per subscription. So in your subscription, you have a limit of 1,000 number of VNet that you can deploy in the cloud, and also per region, you have a limit of 1,000 VNet that you can deploy in the cloud. Also, we proceed further to look at the subnet. So like I show in the overview, we look at the subnet. In the subnet, we have the default subnet. We also have the gateway subnet. Then, like I said, we have other subnet. Then when it comes to the aspect of this subnet, all right, so in this subnet, in terms of the limit that you can actually deploy in a VNet, you can deploy 3,000 number of subnets in a single virtual network. 3,000 number of VNet in a single virtual network. Okay, so we'll be actually we'll try to see how we can deploy those the VNet and also the subnet, and you can also maybe take your time at your own leisure time to play around it and see how you can deploy as much as possible number of VNet, much as possible number of subnet. Then before we then proceed with the VPN gateway. So before this, because why I have to like reveal the VNet and the subnet is based on the fact that the VPN gateway cannot just sit on its own in the cloud environment. The VPN gateway resides in a virtual network. The VPN gateway resides in a virtual network. So before I actually proceed with the VPN gateway, I will try as much as possible to quickly take us to the lab environment where we can deploy the virtual network. And when we deploy the virtual network, I will also request us to deploy the gateway subnet, so that once we have those ready, then we can then proceed with the VPN gateway and also the local network gateway and the connection object. So I will be sharing, I'll be going to the lab to share my screen on the lab section. Okay, please hope you are able to see my screen. I hope we're able to see the screen. Okay, so I'm currently presenting the lab, and in the lab environment, you know, basically we are trying to see a way that we can actually establish inter-site connectivity, inter-site connection, inter-site tunnel, how we can establish a connection between the on-premises and the cloud environment. So by this way, I'm going to deploy two virtual network. Okay, in this particular scenario, I'm going to deploy two virtual network. That is two VNet. So the first VNet, I will be naming it on-premises VNet. So I want us to understand, just like you have, I mean, just like we have in the environment on premises, such as maybe like Microsoft on-premise environment. Let's just presume the Microsoft on-premise environment is on premises. So we now intend to establish a connection between the Microsoft on-premise environment and the Azure cloud. Okay, so in such a scenario, it will require us to have two different virtual network, two different network. And that is the reason why I intend to deploy two VNet. So quickly, I'm taking us through the VNet. So the first VNet, I'm going to give it. So in the VNet, like my colleague Kofi rightly showed us last week, he took us through the aspect of the virtual network environment. So he showed us how we can actually deploy the VNet by clicking on this button. That is hard. Once we're in the virtual network environment, you go to hard VNet. So once you click on hard, so it's going to like take us to environment where we can be able to impute the parameters that is required. So I just click on hard button, and it's currently taking me there. Sorry, it seems to be a little bit processing. Okay, this is taking a little bit time to come up. It's taking a little bit time. Let's wait a little bit for it. Let it come up. It's going to take us to a dialog box where we will be able to input the parameters required. So, and the parameters require, it's because we want to deploy two virtual network. The first virtual network we'll be deploying, we will call it on-premises environment. And the second virtual network we deploy, we call it the Azure cloud. So by default, because we intend to see a way that we can establish connectivity between the two different VNets, between the two different network. For instance, I have a company here in Nigeria, and the company that is here in Nigeria, and also I have another company, let's say in the West Europe. So the company that is in Nigeria, I intend to see a way that that company can be able to like have a secure communication between the company here in Nigeria and also the company in the West Europe. So I will try as much as possible to deploy two virtual network. The first virtual network, okay, so the first virtual network, I'm going to input the various parameters required. In the virtual network, yes, by default, you state the subscription. And the next is you are going to deploy, of course, your virtual network in a resource group. Okay. Then also you give it the name. Let's say on-prem. I'm giving this on-prem. Okay. So, and yes, I'm going to deploy this virtual network in the region that is in the North Europe region, just as we can see. So the next there is the IP address range. So in the IP address range, I'm having the block of the 10.1.0.0/16 block, and this is going to give an enormous IP number of IPs, which is about 65,336 number of IP that will be contained within this virtual network, as we can see in this place. So the next, I'm going to specify, like I stated in the course of the slide, I said there will actually be a default subnet. Good. So I have that already. And this default subnet, you can actually have your resources such as virtual machine, such as any type of resources that you intend to deploy in the cloud. Firewalls and what have you can have them in this subnet. So the next again that we go to, the next button there is the security section. Anything any of these resources you intend to enable, you can actually enable them. Be it Bastion OS, be it the DOS protection standard, be it firewall. The Bastion will actually help you to be able to like within this virtual network to securely access your virtual machine via the private IP. Okay, so the tags, which is actually used to actually to seamlessly search for your resources, the resources you actually deploy within the virtual network. So we go to review and create. Once the validation is passed, then we proceed to create this virtual network. And once we are done with, okay, great. So the the validation is being passed already. So that's actually say that I can proceed to create my virtual network, create. So while that is actually going on, creating of the virtual network actually does not take much time. It takes just a short time to quickly create. So within, yep. So the deployment is in progress. While that is actually going on, within just short time, this should complete within the next 1 minute, 2 minutes. It should get, the deployment should be true. So once this is done, then we proceed to deploy the gateway subnet, because that is what is actually essential when it comes to aspect of we intend to deploy VPN in the cloud, so that we can be able to establish connection between the cloud and the grid. So the deployment is done, so we can proceed to resources. And the resource we proceed to, as you can see, is the virtual network. That is the virtual network we just deploy. And you will agree with me that the virtual network we just deploy is of the address space, which is 10.1.0.0/16, right? And I showed us earlier. So we proceed to deploy the subnet where the gateway can reside. Now, my colleague Kofi has already done justice to all these blades that we have on this virtual network. So I need not to take much time there. I go to subnet. In the subnet, this is the default subnet that always comes with any virtual network that you deploy. Once you deploy a virtual network, you see a subnet coming alongside with it. So the next that we deploy, it's the gateway subnet. And the gateway subnet is a subnet whereby the gateway alone single-handedly resides. The gateway does not actually share its subnet with any resources at all. It does not actually share its subnet with any resources. So by default, when you are deploying a gateway subnet, gateway is meant to be seated in that subnet only. So we go ahead and deploy the gateway subnet. So in the gateway subnet, already you can see it. This the name field, it's actually grayed out. It's grayed out. That is, we cannot actually impute a name there. By default, it's going to name itself as gateway subnet. So, and already I already have a block of address space that is already given to me to assign to this gateway subnet. That is 10.1.1.0/24. /24 is like 256 number of IP address space. So I can reduce it to, let's say, I can reduce it to maybe like to 27. I can say 27 for me not to waste too much of my IPs that are contained within the virtual network environment. So in the gateway subnet, this is by default none, as well as network security group. It's not always require route table, which is your UDR. That is the user defined route. It's not always okay. That is maybe if there's a situation whereby needs arise that will require you to maybe deploy a UDR and attach to the gateway subnet, then you can deploy that. But if there's no need, it's always advisable to leave this as none. Both the route table and as well as network security group, leave it as none, please. If there's no need for you to attach any of them, leave it as none. The reasons is based on the fact that when you actually attach network security group or route table, you have streamlined the routes of your traffic to only, within a particular channel only. Okay, within a particular channel, and of which Azure resources would like to always communicate via the gateway subnet. But in a situation whereby the gateway subnet has already been locked using either network security group or using a route table, that will not allow Azure resources to be able to have a seamless communication. As such, it's always advisable you remove network security group or you remove route table. So we proceed and create this, okay? So I go ahead and click on save. So that is for the gateway subnet. The gateway subnet, good, perfect. Within a short time, we create that. So I will as well say go ahead to create the second virtual network. I gave the first VNet, I gave it on premises. So the second VNet, I'm going to give the second VNet, I'm going to give it Azure Cloud, because we are trying to see a way that we can establish a connection, maybe from on premises to Azure, or from a company here in Nigeria and to a company maybe in the West Europe. And meanwhile, the on-prem network is deployed to North Europe. So the second VNet.
Sorry, Stephen. One of our viewers asked if you can change the theme from dark mode to normal mode.
Okay.
They're following along, and it seems to be getting in the way.
Okay. Okay. The theme. You mean from my portal?
Yes.
Okay.
It seems to be in dark mode.
Yes, please. Okay. Just give me a minute.
Perfect.
Is it okay now?
So you can, yes, it is. It is. You can proceed with the rest of the demo.
All right. Okay. So we are trying to deploy the second VNet. Okay. The second VNet, we are trying to deploy it. I already click on the add button for me to add the second VNet. So why this is actually going on, because it's trying to like take me to that section. Let me take us back to the slide. So in our slide environment, we have the VPN gateway. And of course, we have to prepare the environment where this VNet, where the VPN gateway can reside. So the environment, it's the virtual network, and as well within the virtual network, it's going to reside in a subnet called the gateway subnet. So now the VPN gateway is a type of virtual network gateway that sends encrypted traffic between your virtual network and your on-premises location across a public connection. So the public there is your across the internet. So with the VPN gateway, you can actually route your traffic, from your on-premise environment across the public, across the internet to the other location. Okay, you can use a VPN gateway to send traffic between virtual networks across the Azure backbone, which we will look. We take time to see that. We see that later on. So the next on the slide, we have the local network gateway. The local network gateway that we have there typically refers to your on-premises location. Okay, it typically refers to your on-premises location. So we will see how we can be able to find the on-premises parameters on the local network gateway in the cloud, and as well define the cloud parameters in the on-premises environment. So let me take us to the portal. Let me take us back to the portal. Okay, this is not, it's not completed yet. Okay, why this is still, because this is actually still taking a little bit time. So I will continue with the slide. So, like I said earlier on, the local network gateway, which you will always find in the Azure cloud as LNG. The local network gateway is typically referred to your on-premises location. So when we mean the on-premises location, we mean some information from your on-premises. And what is that typical information required from your on-premises? We require the public IP from your on-premises environment. And as well, we require the address space from the address space of your network from your on-premises environment, which will then be defined on the local network gateway in the cloud. And as well, the same will also be defined in the on-premises. So the next on the slide, we have the connection object. The connection object is actually, these are the points where you establish the site-to-site VPN connection between the virtual network gateway and the on-premises VPN device. So we take our time to see each of these resources one after another. So by the time we finish deploying the virtual network, then we also proceed to see the gateway. Okay, great. So this is actually up. Now, I will proceed in similar manner, just the way I actually created the first virtual network. I will as well proceed to create this. So I'm going to call this, let me give it Azure Cloud, because we are trying to represent this idea of connecting from the local on-premise environment to the Azure cloud environment. So the first one is it's actually the region is actually in the North Europe. So I want to put this second network in the West Europe. So have this West Europe. And as you can see, both of them, they are in different region. So they have the cloud in between them. And for us to be able to route our traffic across this cloud or through this cloud, we will have to use the gateway to route the traffic. So we proceed to review and create. So once the validation is passed, then we proceed to create that. So this is in the IP address of 10.2.0.0/16. While the first one is in 10.1.0.0/16. Great. So we proceed to create that. And while that is going on, I will take us back to the slide so that we can proceed with the slide. Why the deployment is actually on. So in the course of the connection, okay, like I mentioned, the environment where the gateway can reside is the virtual network. And in the virtual network, we have the subnet. So when we have the subnet, we deploy that is the VPN gateway in the gateway subnet. And once we're able to deploy the VPN gateway in the gateway subnet, we proceed further to see a way that we can then deploy our network gateway. And once we're able to deploy the local network gateway, we can as well deploy the connection. Because if you deploy the VPN gateway, you have to deploy the local network gateway. And once you deploy the local network gateway, you have to deploy the connection. And once you're able to deploy the connection, then you have an established connection. So the next we look at, it's, sorry. Okay. All right. Okay, great. So the deployment is completed now. So we proceed to the resource, go to the resource, and from the resource, we deploy the gateway subnet. Just the way we did in the first one, we also have to do the same thing in this second one too. So we can see this gave me the address space of 10.2.1.0/24. Let me make it /27 for me not to waste too much of IP. So I can go ahead and save. Okay, so once that is done, good. Like I told us earlier on, the environment has to be prepared before the gateway can then be able to reside in the environment. The next we then proceed to see, it's we now try to deploy our VPN gateway. So okay, so from the menu section or from the menu blade on the portal, you can proceed down to see if it's not actually appearing there. You can go to the marketplace, and marketplace can simply type virtual network gateway. There we go. So we have the virtual network gateway. So when you click on the network gateway, it's going to take us to the virtual network gateway and deployment environment where you can be able to deploy your virtual network gateway. So you click on Add. And please let us have this in mind. We are trying to actually have connection established between our office in, let's say, our office that is actually located in the West Europe and the office that is in the North Europe. We want to see where we can establish a connection, which is in scenario of establishing a connection between on-premises environment and the Azure cloud. So I've clicked on Add, and while this is trying to process, this is actually going on. This is going on. So while this is trying to process, let me take us back to the slide. Meanwhile, this is actually going to take us to a dialog box whereby we can be able to define the various information of our virtual network gateway. which is the VPN that we talked about. Like our moderator rightly said, that the VPN that you can use your VPN to securely access the environment you intend to access. Maybe there is a particular impose. You can use your VPN gateway to bypass those restrictions. Okay, so while this is going on, let me take us back to the slide. So in the slide, I have an FAQ. The first question here, I would need us to attempt this question. Can I deploy virtual machines or role instances to my gateway subnet? Is that possible? Please, I need a response from people, from my audience, please. Is that possible? Can you deploy virtual machine instances within the virtual network gateway subnet? Anybody? Any attempt?
So we are waiting for them to respond. If in the next 2 seconds no one responds,
yeah,
give us the answer.
Okay.
Okay, gentlemen, we're waiting. Oh, we have an answer. Mike, okay, I think this is Sakofi. He said that no, you can't. So I hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you very much. That's a great response from that hand. So you cannot actually deploy virtual machines or role instances to the gateway subnet. It's not by default. Azure recommend gateway subnet should be strictly gateway subnet. No any other resources can reside in gateway subnet. So the second one there is, do I need a gateway subnet for me to deploy my VPN gateway?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been thrown to the house. Do you need a gateway subnet to deploy? Let's give them 20 seconds to answer.
Yeah.
Someone had just answered your question. Michael Ario, he said no.
Okay, great, beautiful. Sorry, did you say no? Actually, that response is actually wrong. Okay, I think okay, great. So, do I need a gateway subnet for me to deploy my VPN gateway? The answer,
we have a response from Ini Ukut. He says yes.
Beautiful. So that is actually the expected answer I'm actually expecting. For me to deploy my gateway, I certainly require gateway subnet for the gateway to be deployed.
Okay. Next question. I think we have 3 on your slide.
Yes. So the next question is, can I connect virtual networks in different Azure regions? In different Azure regions, can I connect virtual networks in different Azure regions? Is that possible?
Gentlemen, you have 20 seconds. Going. Okay, I think there's no response. Okay, let's make it interesting. Oh, okay. If you are in Nigeria, you have a mystery prize if you answer it. The next 2 seconds. We throw it to you. What's the answer?
Can I connect virtual networks in different Azure regions? Can I connect virtual networks in different Azure regions? So, Mr. Raf, Can you have the response from the audience,
No,
please?
I was just looking at the screen when you called my name. We have about 4 responses. Ibukonla says yes, vent pairing. Ini
Okay.
Ukut says yes. Adepoju says yes. Michael Arillo said yes, VNet pairing. I think Ibukonla meant VNet pairing as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, that is beautiful. Yes, actually, you can actually connect your virtual networks in different Azure regions, just like I'm trying to establish a connection now. Okay, so you can actually establish virtual network in different Azure region. You can do that via VNet pairing, which is quite, yes, very, very, you can do that with VNet pairing. You can also proceed to use VNet to VNet connection, VNet to VNet connection. And also, you can do a site-to-site connection. You can do site-to-site connection to use the site-to-site established connection to access your VNet that is in, let's say, in the West Europe. I'm in the North Europe.
Stephen, just sorry to cut you short. I said I will be giving a mystery prize to the person that answered the question, but my mystery prize is kind of generic. Okay. In the groups I mentioned, I'll be giving a link to voucher, or I will cut soap, like they say in Nigeria, to those that want to write exams. So if you answer the question right, if you got the question right, and you are writing an Azure exam, please message me in our group later on. And if you are not in our WhatsApp group, please, if you are not in our WhatsApp group, please, I'm just smiling because of what I'm seeing on the screen. If you're not in our WhatsApp group, please join our WhatsApp group. Look for me, message me. I will share with you the link on how to write exams for free. Microsoft exam for free, voucher. Continue, Stephen.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much, Raphael, for that that particular giveaway prizes to the audience that were able to answer beautifully to those to the questions. Thank you very much. So we proceed further with this session. So I'm still trying to wait for this to come up. The lab, we're in the lab, we're in the process of deploying a virtual network gateway. We are trying to deploy a VPN gateway. So the VPN gateway that we try to deploy, we want to use this gateway to be able to like establish a connection between our virtual network that is residing in the North Europe and also the virtual network that is residing in the West Europe. So with the gateway, there has to be a gateway in the North Europe, and also there has to be a gateway in the West Europe for us to be able to establish a site-to-site connection. We can use that to establish a site-to-site connection. So this is actually still going on, and it's taking some time to get to the dialog box where I can input the various parameters required to deploy my gateway. Sorry, I suppose maybe it's due to the network I'm using. That seems to be the network seems to be a bit slow here. So I will proceed further with the slide. So our next slide is going to talk on the site-to-site VPN gateway connection. Okay, so the site-to-site, just like I already introduced to us, the site-to-site, it's actually a type of connection that you establish over IPsec or IKE VPN tunnel. So in the case of the site-to-site, there are some parameters that is actually required depending on the type of VPN that you have on premises. So the type of VPN that you have on premises will determine the type of IPsec or IKE parameters that will be required to be configured. And in Azure environment, we actually have the various validated VPN device that the Azure VPN gateway can actually establish a connection with. So I will quickly take time to take us through that validated VPN gateways. Okay, so right in my screen there, you can see validated VPN devices and device configuration guides. That is the type of VPN devices that Azure VPN Gate supported. So we have the various vendors, as you can see here. We have the vendor, we have the device family, we have the minimum OS version, we have the policy-based configuration instructions, and we have the route-based configuration instructions. Okay, so it can depend on the type of the gateway type that you actually deploy in the Azure environment. So in the Azure environment, you can actually deploy you can deploy a gateway to have either a dynamic type of traffic routing or a static type of traffic routing. So with the static type of traffic routing, which has to do with the policy-based configuration. So the policy-based configuration, in the policy-based configuration, it's actually a type of configuration that you actually require your traffic routing to be defined within a specific defined address, within a specific defined address. But in the type of the route base is actually open. So it's many to many, as the case may be. So we have right on the list of the vendors that the Azure VPN gateway supported. So we have the Alert Telesis, we have the A10 Networks Inc. We have the Arista, we have the Barracuda, we have the Checkpoint, we have the Cisco, the various Cisco's families. That is the Cisco ASR, the Cisco ASR, the Cisco CSR. So it don't depend on the type of VPN that you actually have on premises. So as you can see, going down, we have the Citrix, we have the F5, we have the Fortinet, which has to do with the FortiGate, and each of them, they have those family. So it not depend on the particular type that you actually have on premises. And as well, these are actually the minimum OS version that those gateways, that those VPN on premises, some people know them to be firewalls, on premises firewall. So it depends. I mean, it now depends on. I mean, the OS version that is actually installed on those VPN that you have on premises. So as is stated in this column, the Azure required minimum OS version is for each of these. It's actually rightly stated here, as you can see. They are stated going down. So we have the policy-based type of gateway, and also we have the route-based type of gateway. As you can see, going down, all of these, there are different validated VPN devices of different family, of different vendors that you can go for when you intend to have on-premises VPN firewalls. And each of these can establish secure connection with the Azure Cloud VPN gateway. Okay, so in going down, when we go down, we see the IPsec, that is the IKE phase 1, that is which is the main mode parameters, and also the IKE phase 2, which is the quick mode parameter. So the phase 1 and the phase 2, by default, Azure uses actually this for the policy base. These are the various parameters that is required to be configured, that Azure actually have by default. By default, Azure have for policy base, we have for the IKE version, we have IKE v1. For the Hellman group, we have group 2. For the authentication method, we have pre-share key. For the encryption and hashing algorithm, we have the various about 4 different type of parameters that algorithm that you can actually use depending on the type of validated VPN that you have on premises. So this is actually the default settings that Azure actually has in the cloud. Therefore, the route base, this is also the default settings for the Azure VPN gateway in the cloud. Then in going to the phase 2, the phase 2 also have this as the property. Then as well, the policy base, it has this, and the route base, it also has this. So each of these, this parameter must conform, what you have in the cloud must conform with what you have in the on-premises. Else, if there is no conformation with what you have in the cloud, if it's not in conformity with what you have with the on-premises, as a matter of fact, there will be no connection established. There won't be a tunnel established. So as such, it's highly required that when you are actually setting up your environment, you know the family, you know the type of VPN you have on premises, and you know the type of the hike and IPsec parameters that you have to configure on the VPN in the on-premises. Okay, so I will now quickly take us back to the portal. Wow, this is still taking time. This is still taking time. This is still taking a lot of time. As a matter of fact, we were actually supposed to deploy two gateway in the on-premises VNet. A gateway in the on-premises VNet, and also the second gateway in the Azure Cloud VNet, so that when we have a gateway in the on-premises, we can also have. We also have a gateway in the Azure Cloud VNet that we can then establish our. We can then deploy the local network gateway in the both network. When we deploy the local network gateway in the both network, we then deploy the connection. These are the three parameters or the three information required to be deployed in the VNet, so that we will then be able to securely establish a connection between those two VNets that we actually deployed. This is really taking hell of time. I'm wondering why this is taking this so long time. Okay, so we proceed further. So like I stated earlier on, for the site-to-site VPN gateway connection, it's a connection over IPsec or hike VPN tunnel. So we proceed on the next slide, and the next slide is going to take us to the point-to-site environment. In the point-to-site environment, it's actually a type of connection, just like I stated. The site-to-site connection is a type of connection that you must be behind a VPN on premises before you can be able to establish a site-to-site connection with the Azure cloud. But in the case of point-to-site, the point-to-site VPN gateway connection is not like the site-to-site own connection. The point-to-site own connection does not require VPN on premises. It actually requires just for you to deploy some root and client and root certificate that will then be deployed on the gateway. When this is deployed on the gateway, then we can then be able to deploy those client certificate and also the root certificate on whoever users we intend to give it to. That is on maybe any machine, any client machine we intend to install the certificate. We can then install it on their machine, and when we install it on the machine, then you can then be able to access your cloud resources. So in this case now, you would need not to deploy, you need not to have on-premises VPN. You only just have to deploy a VPN in the Azure cloud. When you deploy a VPN in the Azure cloud, and maybe when you deploy that, you specify, you now go to the point-to-site environment. In the point-to-site environment, you define your address pool, and after you define your address pool, you state the type of the type of tunnel you intend to establish. If it's the type of protocol you intend to use to establish your tunnel, if it's through an SSTP, an IKE v2 type of protocol you intend to use, and if it's IKE v2 or if it's OpenVPN, then the authentication type as well. So for the authentication type, you can have the authentication type of a certificate, unvalidated authentication. You can have the Azure AD authentication. You can have, there are different types of authentications that we can actually configure in the Azure cloud. Oh, this is taking so much time to get this gateway up. It's taking so much time. Okay. I wouldn't know why this is taking this longer time. Usually the gateway for the gateway is actually it's actually a heavy type of resources that we have in the cloud. So and in fact the gateway take approximately like 30 to 35 to 40 minutes before its deployment can be completed. So for the deployment of the VPN gateway in the Azure cloud, it takes like 40 minutes, max 40 minutes to get deployed. So once you deploy the gateway, then because it's actually a type of it's a gateway that by default when you deploy it, it comes with two instances. So the both instances by default you have on the instances you have you have the active instance and also you have the passive instance. So on the gateway use the active instance to route a traffic. But in situation where there is maybe an update going on the active instance, routing of traffic to the backend pool, that is to the resources that is contained within the virtual network, will be done on the passive instance. So there will be a failover. So that is when there is actually an update going on the VPN gateway, on the first instance of the VPN gateway. So there will be a failover to the passive instance. There used to be other scenario where some company or some organization wouldn't want actually anything downtime. They wouldn't want anything downtime. Usually, when there's actually a maintenance that is actually pushed, a maintenance update that is actually pushed from the back end, usually it takes like approximately 10 to 15 seconds for the active instance to fail over to the passive instance. 10 to 15 seconds. So, but some organization wouldn't want that particular number of time. That is the 15 seconds. So they want their traffic to, they don't want they don't want to see anything downtime. They want the traffic to be a continuous routing stuff. So as such, there are some instances that they actually deploy a gateway on active mode. So there's no a situation. I mean, in that situation, the gateway will not be operating on active passive. So the gateway will be operating on active. I'm taking time because we're actually supposed to be in the lab of the gateway for us to deploy the gateway. This is really taking
Stephen,
longer than expected. Yes.
Our time is up.
Wow.
There's something that one of our viewers suggested. They suggested that on your own you should you should redo the lab and record it so that it can be posted on the community's YouTube channel. Would that be possible?
That would be possible.
Okay,
It would be
great.
possible. Yes, I will do that. That would be fine.
Great.
So, and
Great.
there is, I should have actually deployed the VPN gateway earlier on before the session, but it will not make much sense to us. And as such, I tend to deploy it while the session is going on so that we can see the way we can be able to deploy the VPN gateway in the Azure cloud. But the network is actually...
Trust me, these conversations will not end here because I know something about the youth. They are very strong. They are very resilient. They want to understand how to access Twitter or any website that is blocked. So hopefully you make the video and upload. And thank you so much for the amazing presentation that you've given to us today, Stephen. One love.
Thank you. Thank you very much, my great moderator, the great Ralph. Thank you very much. So just in summary, okay, for the VNet to VNet connection, we're not able to touch that. Yes, I will do a video of all this session and upload to the environment. Usually, like I said, it's a very heavy resources. So as such, it's always require a very heavy bandwidth to be able to, have the deployment done seamlessly. So that is VNet to VNet connection, which is actually done when you have the two gateways on two different VNets. So with VNet to VNet connection, you can be able to like establish site to site, but this is actually done in the cloud. This is not a scenario of the on-premises and the Azure cloud. This is a scenario that you do VNet to VNet connection in the cloud environment. In the cloud environment, but you must have two VNets, and in the two different VNets, you must have different gateways. So in this VNet to VNet connection, it's actually a type of connection that does not require local network gateway. It only requires VPN gateway in the two VNets. That is actually for that. Then, okay, so I will take this time to entertain questions, so we can be able to like respond to those questions.
So, gentlemen, our time is actually up. Just 1 minute. If anyone has any question, throw it open. He will answer it in 1 minute, and that's it. We're done for the day. So I will get a good rest and ahead of the next session. So if no one responds in 1 minute, that will be it for the day.
Keep your question coming, please.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the Nigeria Azure community wishes to thank you very much for joining us. It's been an awesome session. We hope that you join us this evening by 6 o'clock. Trust me, you want some soap, you will get more soap by 6 o'clock. Thank you. See you by 6.